Hi everyone, my name is Randy Ferguson and I'm the Assistant Director of the EOF program at Rutgers-Camden. Congratulations on your acceptance. Today I'm going to show you the next step in the process of securing your spot in EOF, the first year financial verification process. This process is often very complicated and sometimes very overwhelming for students. So what I'm going to share with you today is some of the common documents that all EOF first year students have to turn in, where you can turn these documents in, and who you can reach out to should you have any questions. So why do you need to go through financial verification? I know when you applied to our program, you had to self-report some of you and your family's income on the application. But because we are state funded, we're under strict guidelines that we ensure that all of the incoming first year students in our program actually meet the financial requirements of the program. We do this by pulling and asking for various documents that basically verify what you reported on your FAFSA. The good news is after this is over and after you've been verified, you'll never have to go through a verification process like this again. Every year after this, you'll just renew your FAFSA. There may be times you have to turn in some extra documents, but it will be nowhere near as complicated or as lengthy as this is. So how do you get started? The first thing is to check that your FAFSA is complete. You can do this by going to www.studentaid.gov. This is important because this is where the Office of Financial Aid pulls all the information from. So they do this to check what documents you need to turn in, and also how much aid they're going to give you. So please make sure you log on and check that it's actually been completed and submitted. Once it's complete, the next best step is honestly just to check your email. All communication from the university, including myself from the EOF office and the Office of Financial Aid, will be in this form, especially now that we're viral. We will do our best through our emails to provide all the information we can on how to turn in these documents, where to turn in these documents, and answer any questions that may come up for you during this process. But in order to do that, you're going to have to check your email regularly. I suggest at least checking once a day. That is going to be the best way to get through this process. The other thing is you can go to your financial aid portal. I'm going to show you what this looks like in a second. This is actually where you're going to turn in all these documents. Because we've gone viral, the Office of Financial Aid, there's no one actually in their office right now, so you wouldn't be able to go in and turn these documents in person. It's also difficult to fax any of these documents because there's no one there to really check them. So we highly, highly recommend that you turn them in this way. I'll show you what it looks like on my end, but I'm going to warn you that it's going to look a little bit different because I'm a graduate student, and so I'm not going to have the same screen as you. So this is the Office of Financial Aid website. You can get here by going to financialaid.rutgers.edu or just Googling Rutgers-Camden Financial Aid. What you'd want to do is scroll down and go to check documents. You would hit view, and you can log in with either your NetID or your RUID. I'm going to use my NetID. You want to make sure the year is 2020 through 2021. So as you can see, I don't have a FAFSA on file, so this might be a good way to check that they actually received your FAFSA. But if my FAFSA had been received, and I was an undergraduate student, what you would see here is a list of documents that I need to turn in. Many of the documents that EOF students have to do are actually in what we call in-house documents, meaning it's a form provided by the Office of Financial Aid. So a lot of what you'll have to do is just fill it in and complete it and submit it. You'll also see where on this website, they'll let you know where you have to actually upload it into. So it's important that you're also checking this website daily or at least weekly to make sure that the documents you're submitting are actually getting received. So what are the most common documents for EOF students? The first is the tax return transcript. I'm going to be sending this to you in an email so you don't have to worry about trying to strain your eyes and reading all the fine print here. But basically, there's a number of ways you can get the tax return transcript. So you can go right to the IRS website, so www.irs.gov, and hopefully the best way is just to download it. It'll come through as a PDF. However, we do know that students often have issues getting the actual download. So instead, they'll send it to you by mail. You can actually also request it by mail, which those directions are here, or by telephone. We, of course, recommend the online option, but if you have to do it by mail or telephone, that's fine as well. The thing is to remember is that especially now with COVID-19, the IRS website is extremely overrun. And in general, it takes about 6 weeks by mail to receive the tax return transcript. So as such, we usually tell students this should be the first thing you should request, just to give yourself enough time to make sure you get it. The year you're going to be requesting for is 2018. Why it's so important to make sure that you're checking your financial aid portal and our emails is because for some students, they're requesting multiple copies. So this could be for yourself if you reported that you worked, and your parents as well. If you did not file taxes, there's also directions here on how to get a non-filer statement. The other form that all EOF students have to complete is the asset verification form. This form is an in-house form, so it'll be something you fill out from the Office of Financial Aid. However, some of the questions on here can be a little tricky, and we've seen students have to resubmit this form several times, which is frustrating. So I'm going to briefly go over this form with you and how to complete it correctly. So this is the asset verification worksheet. So the question that usually trips students up is here on section C. So it's asking if the home you own and live in is a multifamily dwelling. So the important thing to remember here is own. So if the house you own, your family owns and lives in is a multifamily dwelling, meaning it's considered that, then you would click yes. However, if your family doesn't own it and so you're renting a home that's considered a multifamily dwelling, then this would be no. So it's really just important to remember this is about ownership here. Often what students will click yes when they live in, say, like a duplex or an apartment complex, but they don't own it. So it's just remember, the question is if you own and live in it, not if you just live in it. If it's no, then you hit no and NA. The other thing that is important is making sure that all sections of this are filled out. So if it is no, then all of these have to be checked off, all these NA boxes. Same thing with this section. If your family does not own a business, then all these answers would be no, and these would be NA. But sometimes what happens is students will just hit no and not fill out the rest, not hit NA in the rest of the questions, and then the form is considered incomplete. The other thing that is important on all the forms is to make sure that your name and signature, as well as your parents' name and signature, is complete. If anything is missing, then they'll consider the form incomplete, which can be really frustrating. Some general tips I have is, just like I said, to make sure all your forms are completed. Do not leave any sections blank. Your RUD should be on every form. So if you get a tax return transcript or some other form that's not generated from the Office of Financial Aid, you need to make sure that your name and RUID are on them so that they can identify those forms for you. It's also important to remember that all the same documents are not required for every student. So some students have more documents required than others. And that's why we typically tell you the earlier you start this process, the better it is. Because if you have a lot of documents to turn in, we want to give you plenty of time to complete this process. The other and last thing I can not overemphasize enough is to ask questions. If you are unsure of a form or have specific questions about some of the financial questions that are being asked of you, please reach out to Ms. Olivia Longo, who's the Senior Financial Aid Officer and primary point person for our EOF process. Her email is listed here, but I will also send her contact information to you in an email. Please also reach out to me. That's me, the Assistant Director, Randy Ferguson, and I'm going to be your primary contact person throughout this entire process. So if you have questions, you're confused, if you're overwhelmed, or you just don't know how to, go on to the next step, please reach out to me. The more you communicate, the better this process is. Congratulations again, and I can't wait to work with you.